Hello and welcome to SimCast, the Higher Education Simulation Podcast. My name's Tony Jeremy. I'm the Academic Lead for Simulation-Based Education at UEA Norwich.
Hi everybody, my name's Lawrence Hill and I'm the Chair of the Simulation Group in the School of Health Sciences at UEA Norwich. Welcome back to the podcast.
And great episode today. Today we're joined by Charmaine, Chandler and Lindsay Morgan, who have just literally been on one of our Sim Instructors courses.
Yeah, this is a hot debrief from the Sim Instructor course that we did earlier today. If you could just, Lindsay, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and your previous experience in simulation.
Sure, thanks, Lawrence. So I'm the Director of Professional Postgraduate Programmes at the School of Pharmacy at UEA, and my portfolio is around teaching post-registration pharmacists. So limited experience of simulation up to now. We do a lot of case-based learning, case-based teaching, and today was really about taking that to the next level and incorporating simulation more robustly and seeing how we can use what you guys are doing to design our new courses.
Excellent, thank you. And Charmaine, what about yourself? What's your clinical background? What do you do academically in the university, and what's your previous experience with simulation?
So I'm one of the lecturers in the occupational therapy team and also the senior advisor for pre-registration learners. So in terms of experience, lots of experience around teaching practical skills, but very limited in terms of putting that into a more simulation-based education environment. So came at it very kind of new today, keen to learn how I could take those practical skills forward and develop that into more simulation.
Great. And I think that's kind of where we'd aim that simulation instructor course for is competent academics who are a little bit new to simulation.
Yeah, so it's really interesting to find out what your preconceptions or understanding of simulation was before undertaking the course today, and perhaps how that's changed now as a result of today's course. Lindsay?
Yeah, so I think I had overestimated the role of technology in simulation. And what was really lovely today was that actually it was really low tech. And that meant that we could concentrate on some of the softer skills that the academics need to really get the best out of students without worrying about buttons to press and things to program. So that's it's been reassuring for me actually as an educator that the technical side of it isn't as complex as I imagined.
That's great.
I think I'm similar actually. I think I'd really overcomplicated the technology side. I think that the process that goes behind planning a simulation is complex, but I had overcomplicated the actual technology part and almost then shied away from it because I thought, oh no, I can't do that because I actually don't know what I'm doing with all that technology. So had completely shied away from trying to implement it in any of my sessions.
Yeah, so part of the face-to-face content of the program is we run a couple of simulations and we deliberately don't use technology apart from camera systems that we broadcast to a different room. But we certainly don't use technology in the facilitation of it for that very reason, because there's this common misconception.
So what are the kind of messages you're taking away from the course today then in terms of the pedagogy of simulation? What do you think for you has stood out as the most important pieces of learning?
I think for me, from today, it was the debrief element. So how important it is to obviously set up the simulation event itself, but that the vast majority, for me anyway, today the learning happened in the debrief session, and the importance of kind of honing our skills as to how we facilitate that session, to really think about making sure we're not providing feedback and that the learners aren't therefore kind of passive in that process, but that it's a real opportunity to debrief together as a collective, so to kind of try and remove that hierarchy as much as possible. So I'd say that's where the bulk, I suppose, of my learning came today.
Okay, thank you. And Lindsay?
I would agree, actually. I think that there's a real sense of self-moderation there when you're used to giving feedback in an academic sense. You're used to linking that feedback directly to assessment. It's a real change of strategy and a really dynamic strategy, actually, as well. The idea of how quickly you need to be thinking to link together concepts to make sure that you are making it valuable for all of the learners. You're making sense of that experience. Actually, it's a real skill and a different skill as well.
Yeah, and do you know what? It's really nice that you say that, because it's something that we've been trying to convey, really, that, you know, we are lucky to work in an organisation that's got lots of really good people that have got lots of experience, but, you know, having people come in who have got, you know, relatively little kind of background and experience in simulation, but to come in and say, actually, do you know what? This is a little bit different, and, you know, I've learned something today is really nice to hear.
So having been on the course today and looking at your kind of preconceived ideas of what you thought simulation was, has anything changed? And where do you see simulation now fitting in your future teaching that you do on your programs?
Yes, I suppose what's changed for me is that complexity of it, in terms of I will try to not overcomplicate it. And I think about where I can implement simulation into my teaching. So it doesn't have to be an all sing and all dance and major simulation event for it to be an effective learning experience. The ones that we did today, involved no technology other than cameras, but was really effective for our own learning. So it was being part of that made me think, well, actually, there's lots of opportunities for learning for our students that don't have to be a major trauma day or something like that, but will be equally as valuable.
Yeah.
So I think I can easily then see ways that I can meaningfully embed it in my sessions, rather than trying to think of it as this whole new stream I need to develop.
Yeah.
But it's about looking differently about what we already do, I think.
And that's a really good point. And I think if you're dipping your toe into simulation for the first time, there is this misconception that you have to do it all bells and whistles for it to work. And actually, you're probably better off doing something simple first and doing it well, rather than trying to go to this massive day with all sorts of different things involved.
And that's why we've been at pains to focus on the technique of simulation rather than the technology. So it's great that that's felt like it makes it more approachable for you, Charmaine. What about you, Lindsay? What do you think will be different or now or in the future in terms of pharmacy education as a result?
Well, our learners are a little different to Charmaine's. We deal with post-registration learners, and so there is an expectation of complexity in the types of simulation that they will be offered, because they have to be a high fidelity, and we have to remember that these guys are in practice when they're not demonstrating their skill set with us, and that creates a different level of responsibility, I think, on us as teachers and educators. What's been interesting is looking at how we use case-based learning and how we can adapt those scenarios to simulation scenarios. And actually, that's not a huge piece of work reflecting on the cases that we have. What interests me is the multidisciplinary side of this. So working with Charmaine, who's an occupational therapist, we've worked with a physiotherapist today as well. A lot of the scenarios we use in pharmacy around progressing patients therapeutically, they don't necessarily have a single pharmacy focus. So there are some things that we do relative to a patient's journey that could be used also to teach Charmaine students, to inform on physiotherapy choices, to assist with medical students. And I'm now thinking about how the scenarios that we've already developed, as we move forward to create simulations from them, how we can then use our colleagues to make sure that these simulations work for different professional groups, so that we can actually have a truly multi-professional offer and generate some efficiencies there, but also some impact for our pharmacy students.
Oh, that's brilliant to hear.
And we had a really good discussion about that, didn't we, during the day-to-day, about what we can do to try and improve those processes, to try and have a kind of a bank of scenarios where we can encourage multidisciplinary sharing and team working together to really develop these.
Yeah, and it for me underscores that although simulation-based education is not a new concept, that actually really implementing it and embedding it in higher education is it's massively work in progress. It is for us as a School of Health Sciences and a cross-faculty approach in terms of pharmacy and other schools. There's plenty of ground still to cover in terms of how we make it really sing for lots of different professions.
So in the spirit of keeping it a hot debrief, I don't think we should go on too much longer.
Agreed.
So before we finish, what kind of one key takeaway message would you give to anyone who's either new to simulation or is thinking about maybe doing some CPD around simulation like you've done today?
I'd say for me that the Simulation Instructor Course has changed my perception, I suppose, of simulation. So I would encourage people to do the course purely from the perspective that it was really nice to be in the shoes of the learners to see what simulation can feel like, because I think that also will change my approach and the emphasis I'll put on things like the importance of the briefing element, developing that kind of psychological safety, because if you've experienced it yourself, I think it then changes the approach that you use with learners. So that would be my big take-home message.
Great, thank you. And Lindsay?
I would say you need to acknowledge this as another pedagogical skill and something that does need to be taught, something that does need to be practiced and honed. And so today we've been taught. There's now going to be a phase of embedding and practicing. And I was really lucky to have another pharmacy colleague with me today. So I think we're going to be working together to practice some of the vocabulary we've learned, some of the application of it. And we'll be strongly encouraging the other members of our team to come on the SimCast training as well.
Great. And they'd be absolutely more than welcome, as would anybody else listening into this podcast. If you do think you'd be interested in coming and undertaking our HSC Simulation Instructors course, please do get in touch. We would love to hear from you.
And what we'll do as well is we'll stick a link in the top right-hand corner to the playlist of the online component of the Sim Instructors course, which you can have a look at as well.
Okay, well, Lindsay, Charmaine, huge thanks to both of you. And of course, big thanks to to Jenny and to Susie as well for coming on the instructor course today. It was lovely to work with you as well. Thank you very much for listening in, and we will see you on the next one. Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.